think back through recent years, how often have we had a farm truck regulatory conversation that actually ended upbeat or on a positive note? Wasn't it nice to actually see that we've made some progress on some of the issues that you all have been talking about for years? And certainly it may not be everything that you all want, but I can tell you, as we've worked on farm truck issues since 2004, I believe. I started here in 2002, and it was about 2004 when stuff really started hitting the fan. And people kept telling us, you have to wait for a highway bill, you have to wait for a highway bill. And when we approached this last highway bill, folks, we had no friends. I've told you that before. Safety advocates do not like exemptions for farmers. Truckers do not like exemptions for farmers. The list goes on and on. And so we had worked with the American Farm Bureau, Kansas Farm Bureau, Oklahoma Farm Bureau, states that have had some similar issues when it comes to trucking regulations. And one of the things that we wanted to do was fix that border issue for the Buchanan County boys, Platte County, some guys in southeast Missouri, in northeast Missouri, when you get hammered just by going across the state line a few miles. And every time we brought that up, people kept telling us, well, you cannot do anything because you're going to violate the Interstate Commerce Clause. And we finally found some staffers on the Hill that were willing to help us work on the legislative language to do just that. And we're fortunate now to have folks at the Highway Patrol that understand how important agriculture is to the state and want to work with us. So I hope that was evident yesterday that we've made a little progress. And I'll have to tell you that Missouri's delegation members were really involved in that. Senator Blunt was extremely helpful. There were times that his colleagues, he actually worked specifically on the farm truck language. And there were times that Mr. Merkley, a Democrat from Oregon, who was also working on that amendment, kept coming back and saying, well, you know what, people just want to do a study, and if the study comes back favorably, then we'll grant these new exemptions. Well, how often is a study going to come back in our favor saying that farmers need more exemptions? Not going to happen. And to Senator Blunt's credit, he kept pushing back and held tight to make that language happen in the Senate. On the House side, Congressman Sam Graves and Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer were very involved in the hours of service language and offering that on the House side. So we can be fortunate that Missouri's delegation members pushed to get some of these clarifications and exemptions for you all. I'll just mention real quickly, Bob's touched on Farm Bill, and obviously the Farm Bill is one of the many issues that are kind of caught up in the bottleneck this year as we look at the budget. I mean, if you look out from the calendar and you look at the next budget crisis or hurdle that comes up, every few weeks we have a new budgetary issue to work through, and so it really does clog the arteries, so to speak, of Congress in terms of trying to move some of our priorities. While we're trying to move through Congress, we also have to be mindful that we have another 4 years of an administration that certainly wasn't helpful to us on the regulatory front. So we still have a Clean Water Act guidance document that you all helped us fight last year with our postcard campaign. That battle continues, although we don't know where things stand. We don't know if they're going to roll out the guidance document itself or if they'll actually pursue a formal rulemaking. So that's one that's in limbo. If you listen to the State of the Union address, you heard the President mention climate change. Yes, folks, that is back on the radar, and he's already told Congress, if you won't act, I will, through executive orders or anything else under his power. And so that's one that you all were very involved a few years ago. On the Hill, Farm Bureau is still credited with defeating cap and trade, and my guess is you all will be just as committed to doing the same thing again if a proposal comes forward. Finally, I'll mention as well in terms of issues, Mike Steenhoek yesterday mentioned the Water Resources Development Act. That's one issue that may actually have some chances of getting somewhere this year. There's commitment on both the House and Senate, but we have to, again, get past this budget impasse. And one that we don't talk a lot about in Missouri is immigration reform. Our policy is clear in terms of what we believe needs to be done in terms of border security and employer enforcement. Actually, people are saying the political winds are right to seek and to try and pass comprehensive immigration reform. American Farm Bureau is very involved in working with Senators Feinstein and Rubio on a comprehensive package, but a package that will include an agriculture component to make sure states like Florida, California, Michigan, New York, South Carolina, North Carolina, you take that long list of states with a heavy influence or emphasis in specialty crop production, where they rely upon guest workers. And so immigration reform is a priority for American Farm Bureau, and one that you'll probably hear about some in the news. I'll just wrap up by saying Mike Steenhoek yesterday referenced the chance that the two of us had to speak at the United Soybean Board meeting in December, and we were asked to talk specifically about transportation and identify game changers, if you will. What needs to be done in terms of ag transportation that are game changers. I talked about farm truck regulations. We can talk about locks and dams, and we can talk about all sorts of investments that we need to make, but in this budget climate, some of those things just realistically are really tough to do. When you talk about farm truck regulations, I label that in the category as keeping you all in the game. May not necessarily be a game changer, but it's about keeping you in the game of hauling what you grow or raise. Same thing can be said on many of the regulatory issues that we're fighting. They're not fun, but defeating the Clean Water Act guidance or stopping some type of onerous cap and trade or climate change initiative is about keeping you in the game. And so while we continue to work on these major issues within Congress, we have to keep our eye on the ball too on these other areas and keep you in the game of being involved in production agriculture.